On June 28, 2015, Dr. Teresa Sievers returned alone to her home in Bonita Springs, Florida. She had flown back late from a weekend trip to New York, where she had celebrated her mother's birthday. Her husband, Mark Sievers, and their 2 daughters had stayed behind to continue the family vacation. Teresa returned early so she could attend to patients at her holistic clinic the next morning. Just before midnight, she entered her house, unaware of the horror waiting inside. Within minutes of arriving, Teresa was ambushed. She was attacked in the kitchen and bludgeoned to death with a hammer. The violence was extreme. Her body was found face down, clothed in a black dress, and surrounded by a large pool of blood. The medical examiner would later determine that Teresa had been struck 17 times in the head with a hammer, confirming the brutality of the attack. The following morning, when Teresa failed to arrive at work, her co-workers grew concerned. They contacted Mark Sievers, who remained in New York. He then reached out to a trusted friend and neighbor, Dr. Mark Petrites, asking him to check on Teresa. Petrites entered the home and discovered her body lying just inside the kitchen. He immediately called 911 and reported that there was a hammer beside her and that her head had been bashed in. When detectives arrived, they noted the garage door was open and a suitcase inside appeared to have been rummaged through. Teresa's purse was also found disturbed on a bar stool near her body. Although the scene suggested a possible burglary, no valuables were missing. Even more puzzling, there were no fingerprints or DNA left behind. Investigators also noticed irregularities with the home's alarm system. Mark's mother, Bonnie Sievers, had visited the house over the weekend and said she had enabled the alarm. However, when she returned Sunday morning, it was off. Detectives later learned it had been manually disabled early that morning, hours before Teresa was killed. From the start, the murder scene raised serious questions. Though it looked like a break-in, the lack of theft and forensic evidence, along with the timing and method of the attack, suggested a targeted and calculated act of violence rather than a random crime. Dr. Teresa Sievers was a vibrant and deeply passionate woman, known for her commitment to holistic health and alternative medicine. Standing just under 5 feet tall, Teresa carried a commanding presence wherever she went. Her energy, intelligence, and compassion made her a favorite among her patients, who trusted her to not only treat their ailments, but also guide them toward a healthier, more natural lifestyle. She began her career in internal medicine, earning respect as a capable and thorough physician. Over time, however, she became increasingly drawn to holistic approaches, believing that mind, body, and spirit should be treated as one. This belief led her to open her own integrative health practice in Bonita Springs, Florida. Her clinic quickly grew in popularity, offering treatments that range from traditional medicine to nutritional guidance and lifestyle changes. Patients traveled from across the region to seek her help. Outside her clinic, Teresa was building a presence on YouTube and had ambitions of hosting a national health show. She wanted to reach a broader audience and educate the public about wellness and preventative care. Those who knew her described her as driven, inspiring, and always full of ideas. She believed in empowering people to take control of their health and well-being. Teresa met Mark Sievers, a nurse from Missouri, while he was vacationing in Florida. The two married and eventually had 2 daughters. Mark took on the role of managing the office and overseeing the family's home life, while Teresa focused on treating patients. To the outside world, they appeared to be a strong and successful couple, a loving family with shared mission. But behind the perfect image was a future none of them could have foreseen, a future that would end in tragedy. Following the discovery of Dr. Teresa Sievers' brutal murder, investigators launched an intensive search for answers. At first, they considered the possibility that Teresa had interrupted a burglary in progress. Her suitcase appeared to have been rifled through, and her purse was disturbed. However, there were no valuables missing from the home, and nothing appeared stolen. Detectives quickly dismissed the burglary theory in favor of a more chilling possibility, a targeted and premeditated attack. One of the earliest clues pointing to a planned ambush was the home's alarm system. Mark Sievers' mother, Bonnie, had been taking care of the family's pets while the Sievers were out of town. She told authorities that she had armed the alarm system when she left the house Saturday night, but when she returned the next morning, it was off. Initially, Mark told her that the system was glitching. However, Detectives later discovered that someone had manually disabled the alarm at exactly 6:09 a.m. on Sunday, hours before Teresa returned home and was killed. With few immediate suspects, detectives explored all potential leads. They looked into disgruntled employees at Teresa's holistic clinic and individuals involved in her charity work, particularly troubled teen mothers she had tried to help. But none of these leads produced any credible suspects. Attention naturally turned toward Teresa's husband, Mark Sievers. While he had a strong alibi, he had been in New York with their daughters. Investigators brought him in for questioning. During the interview, Mark broke down several times, sobbing, hitting himself, and even talking aloud to his deceased wife. When left alone in the room, he was overheard saying, "Oh my God, Teresa, what could I have done?" Detectives found his behavior suspicious and overly theatrical. Mark eventually revealed that he and Teresa had an open marriage and were very occasional swingers. A search of his phone uncovered photos and videos of women he had been with. Despite his initial claim of marital harmony, neighbors told police they had frequently heard the couple arguing. Still, despite the odd behavior, lack of transparency, and marital issues, there was no direct physical evidence connecting Mark Sievers to the murder. At this point, his role in the crime remained a disturbing possibility, but it was still only a theory. A crucial breakthrough in the investigation came weeks after the murder, when detectives in Florida received a call from a police chief in southern Illinois. The tip pointed them to a woman named Rose, who had potentially vital information. Rose explained that during the weekend Teresa Sievers was killed, she had been at a friend's house when the friend's daughter mentioned her husband, Curtis Wainwright, had traveled to Florida to address an IT emergency for a friend. The timeline immediately caught Rose's attention once she heard about the murder and the involvement of Mark Sievers. Curtis Wainwright was not a stranger to the Sievers family. He was Mark Sievers' longtime best friend from Missouri. When investigators dug deeper, they were intrigued by how similar Wright and Mark looked. Both men shared remarkably similar grooming habits, including receding hairlines that were shaved, matching styles of facial hair, and even a similar way of dressing. These physical similarities led some to speculate that Teresa may have momentarily mistaken Wright for her husband in the dark. When authorities brought Wright in for questioning, he initially claimed he had never left Missouri that weekend. However, that alibi quickly crumbled under scrutiny. Multiple people, including Wright's own wife, confirmed that he had been away and unreachable during the time Teresa was killed. His absence was noted by several others, further damaging his credibility. This unexpected lead significantly changed the direction of the investigation. For the first time, detectives had a new name, someone with a personal connection to Mark Sievers and a possible reason for being in Florida during the murder. The focus shifted from a general inquiry to a more targeted investigation, and Curtis Wainwright became a person of serious interest in what was beginning to appear as a murder-for-hire plot. This section delves into the critical technological and surveillance evidence that strengthened the case against Curtis Wainwright and introduced a second suspect, Jimmy Ray Rogers. When investigators searched Wright's rental car, they discovered a GPS navigation device. Although it had been wiped clean, digital forensic experts were able to recover the memory. The GPS data revealed a detailed route from Missouri all the way to Bonita Springs, Florida, placing Wright in the area during the exact time frame of Teresa Sievers' murder. The GPS device was also linked to an email account associated with Jimmy Ray Rogers, a close friend of Wright. Rogers, like Wright, had a criminal record. Detectives soon uncovered surveillance footage from a Walmart in Florida, showing both men together during the weekend of the murder, further confirming their presence in the area. The investigation took another turn when Rogers' pregnant girlfriend came forward. She told police that Rogers had confessed to participating in the murder and had explicitly said that Teresa Sievers was killed with a hammer. According to her, Rogers instructed her to dispose of a pair of coveralls he had worn during the crime. She later led authorities to the exact location where the coveralls had been discarded on the side of the road, physical evidence directly connecting Rogers to the crime. Together, the GPS trail, the Walmart surveillance footage, and the girlfriend's testimony provided concrete proof that both Wright and Rogers had traveled to Florida and were involved in Teresa Sievers' murder. These developments significantly advanced the investigation and painted a clearer picture of a coordinated attack involving individuals closely connected to Mark Sievers. This section uncovers the full extent of the murder-for-hire conspiracy that led to Dr. Teresa Sievers' brutal death. Following his arrest, Curtis Wayne Wright chose to cooperate with investigators in exchange for a reduced sentence. In a detailed confession, Wright revealed that Teresa's husband, Mark Sievers, had orchestrated the killing. According to Wright, Mark approached her with the plan to murder Teresa, offering approximately $100,000 as payment for carrying it out. Wright explained that Mark feared Teresa was planning to leave him and take full custody of their daughters. Mark did not want to lose time with his children and was also facing the potential end of his financial security. Teresa's death would not only eliminate the custody issue, but it would also trigger a substantial $5.8 million life insurance policy in Mark's favor. These combined emotional and financial motives drove him to arrange his wife's murder. Wright told investigators that Mark provided the alarm code to the Sievers' home and laid out the entire plan. Wright and Jimmy Ray Rogers drove to Bonita Springs early Sunday morning and entered the home, familiarizing themselves with the layout before leaving and returning later that night to ambush Teresa when she came home alone. During his court testimony, Wright recounted the chilling moment of the murder. He said Teresa appeared shocked when she was attacked and initially may have thought it was her husband. According to Wright, she raised her hands in defense and asked, "Why?" before being struck multiple times with a hammer. These details confirmed that the attack was calculated, cold, and brutal. Wright's testimony was a turning point in the case, revealing that the murder was not a random act or burglary gone wrong, but a premeditated killing driven by fear, control, and greed. The confession exposed Mark Sievers not as a grieving husband, but as the mastermind behind his wife's death. After Curtis Wayne Wright's cooperation exposed a murder-for-hire scheme, law enforcement moved quickly to bring all parties to justice. In February 2016, Mark Sievers was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. His arrest marked a dramatic shift in the investigation, transforming him from a grieving husband to the accused mastermind of a brutal crime. Jimmy Ray Rogers, the second man involved in the murder, was the first to stand trial. In October 2019, a jury found Rogers guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The conviction was based on physical evidence, GPS data, and testimony from his girlfriend, who had led authorities to discarded evidence linked to the crime. Curtis Wayne Wright, who had confessed and agreed to testify against both Rogers and Sievers, received a lighter sentence. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and, in exchange for his cooperation, was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The final trial was that of Mark Sievers. In December 2019, after hearing extensive testimony and reviewing the evidence of his involvement, the jury found him guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy. In 2020, he was formally sentenced to death. Though convicted, Mark Sievers had continued to maintain his innocence and challenge the verdict. In February 2025, a judge granted him an evidentiary hearing to assess whether he should be granted a new trial. As of now, he remains on death row, awaiting the outcome of further legal proceedings. This section captures the justice process that followed Teresa Sievers' murder and the enduring legal aftermath still unfolding years later. Dr. Teresa Sievers' life was one of passion, purpose, and a deep commitment to healing. Though her journey was tragically cut short, her legacy endures through the lives she touched, patients, colleagues, friends, and family. A pioneer in holistic medicine, Teresa was known for blending traditional and alternative approaches to help her patients thrive. She envisioned spreading her message of wellness across the nation, using both her YouTube platform and public speaking to empower others to take control of their health. Her sudden and violent death sent shockwaves through Bonita Springs community and the broader medical world. Those who knew her described her as vibrant, compassionate, and driven. Her patients mourned not only a trusted physician, but a friend and advocate. The case left a haunting mark on her daughters, who lost not just their mother, but also saw their father charged with orchestrating the crime. Beyond the personal tragedy, Teresa's murder became a landmark case in Florida's criminal justice system. Investigators relied on a combination of GPS data, surveillance footage, cell phone records, and cooperation from witnesses to crack a plot that was meant to be foolproof. The case underscored the growing importance of digital forensics in solving complex crimes. Though justice has been served in the courtroom, Teresa's impact lives on. Her work in holistic medicine continues to inspire health practitioners, and her story stands as a powerful reminder of resilience, justice, and the shocking depths of human betrayal.